strange lounge, plus an extremely unnecessarily complicated transit. Flying a Chinese airline long haul via China is always fraught with challenges, especially when this transit point is a Tier 2 city. And in this respect, China Eastern Airlines did not disappoint. With expectations severely managed, this 21-hour commute back to Australia is really rather doable.
Melbourne.
你想走大厅走还是走这边走？
Step 1, wake up early, gonna rise with the sun. Step 2, get some food in you. Step 3, think real hard about what you wanna be. Step 4, everybody just do your thing.
Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. 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 Wake up, today's gonna be a good day.
Good morning guys and welcome back to my video. I'm coming to you from Incheon International Airport. 因为今天我们将乘搭中国东方航空从仁川国际机场飞往南京禄口国际机场。That's right, I'm beginning my homeward bound journey to Australia, and China Eastern Airlines is the carrier of choice, and they will take me on this first sector to Nanjing from right here in Incheon. So let's get this journey started because the entire journey will be done in business class. So let's do this.
Everybody just do your thing.
If you're new to my channel, my name's Brian. Born and bred in Singapore, I now call Australia home, and I create heaps of travel content. So, the tribe has officially spoken. What you want is what you'd get. Therefore, the main focus of this travel series will be on airlines and their alliances. In fact, I cover all three of them: Star Alliance, One World, and SkyTeam. These sectors will be spread out amongst 3 classes, 8 airlines, 10 flights, spread out over 10 days covering 4 countries and 1 territory. For those who still like to watch me eat, I do a bit of that in Singapore and Hong Kong. These videos will be linked in the description below in chronological order, as and when they're published. If you'd like to make a direct impact into the growth of my channel, give me a like and share this video with a friend. Even better, hit subscribe and the bell icon so you won't miss what's coming up. So here's a heartfelt thanks from down under. The final portion of this trip is always the most challenging. I've spent the last week and a half sleeping in 5 different hotels, never really settling down for a good rest. You can imagine the exhaustion at this point. And being this exhausted, your body isn't optimal to fight off the elements. The last 2 days in Seoul was freezing. I was running from one heated aircraft to a heated airport terminal, into a heated train, then to a heated hotel. How much winter clothes do I need? So I was mostly in a t-shirt fending off sub-zero temperatures. Lo and behold, think I've caught a chill, which explains my nasally intro. Of course, I didn't know it yet as I left the hotel this morning, wondering why was I so tired and my joints were strangely aching. It feels like a fever without the temperature. Uh-oh, not looking good. As a non-Korean airline, China Eastern is one of the largest operating out of Incheon Airport. At the time of writing, they operate flights to Beijing Daxing, Hangzhou, Harbin, Kunming, Qingdao, Shanghai Pudong, Weihai, Wuxi, Xi'an, Yanjie, Yantai, and finally Nanjing, where I'm flying to today. So it's not surprising China Eastern's check-in facilities here at Incheon operates at all hours, catering to this humongous number of flights. There is a dedicated line for high-tiered flyers and business class, which is a good start.
There is a reason why Incheon Airport, together with Hong Kong, are one of my favorite airports to go through because these 2 airports are huge. They're very big and they handle a huge amount of passengers. But the The journey through immigration and security checks is just so easy. And once you're on the airside, the signage is clear. Transit from one point to another part of the airport is just so easy. Everything is clearly marked. So there is no second guessing. There is no freight tempest at security. Everyone is friendly. Everyone is polite. So yeah, Incheon Airport, together with Hong Kong, one of my favorite airports in the world.
As one of the largest airports in the world, Incheon International has 3 parts to this airport. We're in Terminal 1, where most airlines operate out of, including China Eastern. Terminal 2 is dedicated to Korean Air and most of their SkyTeam partners. Strange how China Eastern, being part of SkyTeam, has been excluded from this. And then there is the midfield terminal where I'm departing from today. I've been directed to a lounge right there because China Eastern, together with Shanghai Airlines, operate their own lounge at this location. Sounds great, right? Along the way, heading towards the train, several reminders were made in numerous languages to pay attention to our gate numbers, because this journey in the train towards midfield and Terminal 2 is only one way, and no backtracking is allowed. Incheon Terminal 1 opened for business in 2001. Phase 2 of this airport was planned to open in time to coincide with the 2008 Beijing Olympics, which included a 3rd runway, expansion of the cargo complex, the underground people mover, and this midfield terminal I'm walking through right now. So I arrive at the lounge for China Eastern, and the vibe immediately felt a little off. For one, there is a disused water feature right in the middle of the room. My camera has artificially enhanced the lighting because it was extremely dark, like they were observing Earth Hour.
I have just walked a couple of rounds around the lounge. Number one, there's not much food. There's no warm. The only warm food available is instant noodles and instant soup. Another thing that's lacking in this lounge are charging ports. Look, I really went to look. I went around the lounge twice to look on the floor, to look on the walls. There are no charging ports. There are electrical outlets that are either used to power up equipment, or they are missing. Yeah, this is a very strange lounge.
Get a load of these plastic cubes to trick us into thinking the room temperature fruit salad from a can is ice cold. Thankfully, I was feeling a bit shitty because of my impending fever, so I did not really have an appetite this morning. Still, if I was expecting a good feed, this wasn't the place to do it. Points given for the staff for arranging the disposable paper plates into a pyramid. By the way, the food options at Midfield Terminal is also rather lacking. Pity I wasn't able to backtrack to Terminal 1. Otherwise, I would have gone to the Korean Airlines lounge over there. So much for this being one of my favorite airports. In the last 2 years, my latest fascination is with Chinese airlines. Because just like the country, I think they're some of the most widely misunderstood airlines. And the transit bureaucracy in the country is also another fascination of mine. Because for foreigners, we think China is one gigantic monolith where everyone just takes direction from the top man in Beijing. But this is so far from the truth, because each province has a large amount of autonomy, and thus, each airport functions differently from the next. So this means transit bureaucracy also differs from airport to airport. It's with this unknown in mind that I look forward to arriving in Nanjing. And here's my ride today, pulling in from Nanjing Lukou Airport. Operating flight MU 580 from Incheon Airport to Nanjing Lukou is Bravo 8387, an Airbus A320-200, which first flew in July 2017, making her just under 8.5 years old at the time of writing. Now, this is a rare sight for me, boarding a Chinese airline and having a team of male crew tending to my needs. And they were extremely friendly, very warmly welcoming me aboard. There are 2 rows of business recliners configured in a 2x2, making this a very cozy setup. The excellent service continued here with the flight attendant's insistence on assisting me with stowing my luggage. I did not protest because this is a narrow-body single-aisle aircraft, and trying to get settled in an expeditious time is paramount. Otherwise, I would normally prefer for the staff not to stow my bags due to the risk of lower back injuries. Even though this is a short flight, there is a pillow and blanket placed on the seat. Seat pitch is acceptable for this duration. There are no footrests, and there are universal charging outlets between the seats. No USB ports though. The seat pocket is fuller than a dumpling floating in a delicious broth, with headphones, in-flight magazine, safety card, newspaper, and being a Chinese airline in business class, slippers. There must always be slippers. On the armrest was a drinks menu, which is comprehensive enough, filled with bevies hot and cold, alcoholic and otherwise. The PTV is pretty last generation, and it's fighting hard against the glare of the bright sunshine outside. Content is extremely limited, so I didn't bother with it. Also, it was very laggy. In the chill of this Korean morning, hot towels were very welcome. And speaking of welcome, how about a pre-departure glass of water? I'm feeling the fever coming on, so I'd better stay hydrated. Today's safety video was played in 3 languages: Mandarin, English, and finally in Korean. The introduction of this video in Mandarin is very poetic, with the commentary languishing in Chinese idioms, which are beautifully worded. But somehow, this beauty gets lost in translation when they do it in the English video, which comes across as randomly cringy. More on this after we take off. On takeoff from Incheon Airport, MU 580 would fly mostly over the Yellow Sea, before coasting into Jiangsu province, flying over Yancheng, then looping around Nanjing city and approaching Nanjing Lukou Airport in the opposite direction, clocking a distance of just under 940 kilometers, completing this flight in 1 hour 55 minutes. Having lived in Australia for some 12 years now, gosh, time really flies. We are so desensitized to improper service on a narrow-body business class. I now get cheap thrills from looking at a full bulkhead with curtains. Service began with another hot towel, before the crew came around to lay these disposable napkins on our table. We started with bar service before the actual meal came out. In a business class cabin of 8 seats, there were only 5 passengers. While on the ground earlier on before pushback, all of us were given a personal welcome, and our lunch orders were also taken at the same time. We had a choice of seafood with rice or the beef with pasta. Unfortunately, by the time they came to me, my preferred choice of seafood was no longer available, so I went with the beef instead, with the crew apologizing profusely. The single meal tray was very generously filled with a lot of stuff to make sure we weren't going to leave the aircraft hungry. You may have noticed this random container right here. The cabin crew who took my order decided to give up his meal as he told me this is the seafood option I wanted earlier on. My jaws dropped and was extremely touched by his actions. Oh my god, he really didn't have to. His response was very heartwarming, and there was just no way to convey his eloquence into English. So I shall attempt to paraphrase what I think he said in Mandarin with English subtitles, which may sound a little strange. This was what he said. 能确认您的幸福是我的荣幸。这份海鲜餐我随时都可以吃。这是你第一次，请慢用。To be honest, the meal was pretty decent. When flying a Chinese airline, of course I would have preferred the Chinese option. But this beef ragu thingy was well flavored, although I thought the pasta was a bit of an afterthought. The highlight was definitely the seafood, which was very punchy, spicy, and full of savory punch with prawns, squid, and scallops rounding everything off. Rice would have been perfect with it, but I was so stuffed by this unexpected extra serve. There was nothing much to do afterwards but to snooze the remaining time away, absolutely satisfied with this meal service. As we descend into the haze of Jiangsu province, let's do a stock take on this journey. Check-in was extremely efficient, with numerous counters tending to business class passengers and those with SkyTeam status. While we were given directions to the lounge at the midfield terminal, I wish the staff would have mentioned the other option of the SkyTeam lounge at Terminal 1, operated by Korean Air. Because the midfield lounge was just so weird. It was dark, looked incomplete, and I felt like an urban explorer walking through a haunted, abandoned karaoke bar in Chinatown. Slices of Kraft cheese with biscuit crackers, instant soup, holes in a wall where power outlets used to be. I really wondered who approved this location and thought what a perfect place for an airline lounge. Were we not allowed into the Korean Air lounge? I can only speculate. I noticed a lot of responses from my previous Chinese airline videos about the bad in-flight service tend to be from the Chinese-speaking viewers. I don't know. Could this be a coincidence? Perhaps the bad service was in economy class? After my last 4 rather positive videos about flying China Southern in economy long haul, numerous respondents have suggested to try China Eastern. Then I'll know how shitty they are. Well, here I am. And I've got nothing but great things to say about the service rendered. Sure, they might not be as polished as Singapore Airlines or Cathay Pacific, but there's something very endearing and genuine about their attitudes towards customer service. And I leave this flight with a warm and fuzzy feeling, as if I've just visited a longtime friend. As we pull into the terminal right here at Nanjing Lukou 国际机场, the farewell uttered by the crew is a cheerful one, as they wished me a pleasant onward journey. Heck, they even knew I was here for a transit. It's little touches like this which can make all the difference in the experience. And now for the transit experience. Nanjing Lukou Airport. While they physically have international transit facilities built, it isn't manned at all because there's just little to no transit traffic to speak of. For example, on this flight, all passengers were clearing immigration as this was their final stop, or they were connecting to other domestic flights within the China Eastern network from here. I was the only passenger doing an international transfer. So I had one ground staff waiting to meet me at the gate with a boarding pass in hand for the next flight. She asked for the boarding pass for the next flight issued in Incheon and proceeded to tear it up. Here, she said, I'll give you a new one. And what happened next was a little bizarre.
Well, once again, transit is a complicated thing. Different airports, different arrangement. So here in Nanjing, I have to wait for someone to actually take me through the transit process. But I have to wait about 30 minutes for that person to show up. Yeah, there is a process to go through. You can't just do the transit directly, apparently. But we'll see what happens. New airport, new experiences. Yeah.
The ground staff waited with me until the transit team showed up half an hour later, which turns out there were 5 of them. The door through the facility was then unlocked, and the first person was the police behind the counter as I handed him my passport and boarding pass. With no expression, his first question was 讲中文. I nodded a yes, and he flipped through my passport and asked where I had flown in from and where my next flight was heading to. Dude, you have the boarding pass, right? But I decided not to be a smartass and answered his question. More urban, I replied. 回国吗? I nodded a yes, and he fixed his gaze into my eyes for many seconds afterwards, to the point I was feeling a little uncomfortable. Should I look away? Who is going to blink first? In an alternate universe, this would be an erotic precursor into something naughty in an "ooh, officer, I've been bad" kind of way. But no, the apprehension here was very real. After getting my fingers scanned and photo taken, I was told to move on to the next counter. This time it was immigration, and they pretty much did the same thing. And then they stamped my boarding pass. Final hurdle was the incredibly intense security checks with 3 personnel, where my bags got scanned. The last 2 stations were a lot friendlier than the first police counter though. And with this, I was led through to departure airside, and they closed up that little facility behind me as I walked out. So let's join live Ryan as he journeys through this airport to look for the lounge, because it's time to wrap this video up.
So high, I'm hypnotized.
Man, that was intense. The first check was a police check. So he went through my passport, looked at all the stamps, then scanned my boarding pass, had my picture taken, had my biometrics taken. And then the second counter was, again, I had my photo taken again, scanned my boarding pass, and then finally the third one was the actual security check where I had to remove all the shit from my bag. Power banks, charging cables, camera, other related stuff. So yeah, this is the thing about Chinese airports. Their security is very, very tight. So even though I have an 8-hour transit here in Nanjing, I mean, I could have gone out to I could have gone outside just to walk around the city, but just the thought of going through the security check right here is, I might as well just remain at the airport, right? Well, anyway, I've got 8 hours here to begin my transit, so the Nanjing to Melbourne sector will be the subject of the next video. So for now, I've chucked details of my Instagram on your screen right now, so hit me up there, chuck me a follow, so you can come along with me on my travels in real time. And of course, do not forget to hit subscribe and the bell icon. And I'll see you for the next video. Bye!